The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
Obviously, we over budgeted last year. I hate to say that I was right, but I was right. So.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
I take our constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of my constituents, very seriously.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you boil this down, there is never any time that a parent's right to govern what their children see and what they're exposed to should ever be bypassed.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
It said, by the way, Madison said that in Federalist 40, that it was that worldview that we could alter or abolish governments that led them to do what they did in the amendment Constitution that was supposed to fix the Articles of Confederation. They fixed it all right. They jettisoned it and gave us what we have. Madison also said this in the Federalist. He said, but ambitious encroachments of the federal government on the authority of the state governments would not excite the opposition of a single state or of a few states only. They would be signals of general alarm. Every government would espouse the common cause. A correspondence would be open. Plans of resistance would be concerted. One spirit would animate and conduct the whole. Ladies and gentlemen, we're wasting valuable time. We don't know how long this will take. If this resolution passes and we somehow see other states do the same thing and we enter the Constitutional Convention era, we don't know how long it will take, but we can begin setting things to right. We've got a joint finance committee that knows how to manage money. We've got legislators in here that understand the document they swore an oath to uphold. I believe we're in an enviable position to begin a correspondence and to resist. We need to not waste valuable time. We need to be busy working on the business of taking back our Article 1 responsibilities and powers and rights. And so for those reasons, I think we're on a precipice, and we can do this. We can start this, but wasting time on a constitutional convention that will never actually follow my unicorn plan there. Wasting time on that is not something we can do. It's been pointed out that we are on a financial precipice as well. And so for those reasons, I'm urging you to vote against this, and let's get busy doing what Madison said and get a correspondence going.
Further debate on the motion. Gentleman 14.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to debate in favor of the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
I think the key, I understand the frustrations and the fear that's out there, but the key guardrail on this whatever goes, if the Congress decides, 2/3 of Congress decides there's going to be an amendment, it still requires 3/4 of all state legislatures to ratify this. That's the key guardrail. If they do it, a convention or not. And I use the example of the ERA. What happened there is they went through Congress, got 2/3, they never achieved 3/4 ratification within the deadline. So I'm thinking all this fear is something that we can temper with that guardrail. I'm confident with that guardrail. 38 states have to come through, so it won't be just California and so forth. It has to be all the states. It's a consistent guardrail. I'm comfortable with it. I think that this is a good move forward. I'm going to vote green for this bill.
For the debate on the motion. Gentleman from 5 or 3, yeah, 5.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I'd like to read.
Gentleman wants to debate the bill.
I would like to debate against the motion.
Gentleman has the floor.
First of all, I'd like to read a simplified version of Article 5 because there's some common misunderstanding that the legislatures will necessarily have to approve this. So I'll read just the abbreviated version.
So you're reading out of the Constitution or one that you're making?
Of
you're
the
making
United
on your
States
own,
of
then we
America.
need to ask for unanimous consent to read if we're changing it.
I have not. I would like to have unanimous consent to read an abbreviated version of what's in the United States Constitution that we have already sworn an oath to uphold and defend.
Unanimous consent has been requested. Objection? Hearing none. Gentleman, read.
The Congress shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which shall be valid when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states or by conventions in 3/4 thereof. We are not guaranteed to have the amendments come to this legislature to approve. It can be by a convention of 3/4 of the states, which we have absolutely no control over. We as states ask for a convention to be called, and then it's Congress's duty to set the rules, the time, place, and the rules thereof. So don't be concerned about us being able to approve that. It could be a convention, and we have no idea how those delegates would be assigned. For my debate, I'd like to refer you to the sheet that was handed out. It's a colored sheet that's got a list of all the states and their electoral college votes. If you look at the top 3 states, California, Texas, and Florida, you see that combined they have 124 votes. And this is in the electoral.
All right, folks,
college.
you are watching live right now. Representative Tony Wisniewski up in from District 5 in Kootenai County. The House floor is debating House Concurrent Resolution 10. This is a Convention of States application to Congress. They had just voted on House Concurrent Resolution number 9, which was a similar, dealt with a similar issue, the Convention of States, and that one failed. So it is to be expected here that this one might fail as well, but there has been some very good, robust debate on the Constitution, which can tend to go long because some of the more passionate folks who get elected are staunch supporters of the Constitution, and so any chance you get to argue on the finer points of the Constitution, they take their chances to do so. So we'll keep tabs on this, and in fact, we might go back and just edit grab the entire debate here and upload it for you to watch in full. At another point, because even as we joined when Representative Razor was speaking, there had been quite a few other folks debating as well. So we know there's a lot of folks that have interest in that, and we want to make sure you get it all in full. So with that, thank you for joining us today. It is March 12, 2025. It is now coming upon 10:40 up north, 11:40 down south. And folks, the timing of today's program here is a little bit serendipitous, perhaps, because this morning in the Senate State Affairs Committee, they were debating a bill that would deal with protecting children from pornography. That was the idea behind it, and that kind of dovetails on an explosive issue that I just received this week. From somebody in Idaho. If I can take you back a couple of weeks, I mean, we can go back even further, but a few, over the past couple of months since we've been on the air this session, I have been asking folks out there that if you are a parent, or if you're aware of anything that has happened in the public school system, or any school system for that matter, but generally speaking, the public school system regarding, female students being caught in an unsafe manner, being going into the bathroom with boys, or being sent on trips and being assigned a room with a boy that thinks that they're a girl, to please speak out, because we can't continue to, try to solve these issues and protect our, female students unless we have folks that are willing to step forward and tell their story and create a rallying cry for the school districts and for the state to finally do something. And it's very hard for people to come forward because of the stigma of being ostracized, of just simply not wanting to have the spotlight, because you're focused on your job. You're focused on the work that the student wants to do in school. And you didn't ask for any of this. We had Julie, a former high school student. I think she's 20 now. But a former high school student who spoke of her interaction and what happened to her at the Coeur d'Alene High School here in Kootenai County, where she encountered a boy in the girls' restroom, and how the administration didn't really treat her with any sort of respect or take any actions on it. And that led to another girl speaking out about the same boy in a restroom. And these stories are real. They're out there, but they sort of perk up and then they get swept away, because obviously we don't have the power of the mainstream media to keep beating this into the zeitgeist. But nonetheless, we're going to continue talking about it. And so I got a message this week from a parent. It was a very disturbing message about what had happened to their daughter in a high school here in Idaho. And we're going to get to that. We're doing our due diligence, but, and so we may not divulge every bit of information today on today's program, because we're in the process of gathering information, but we need to kind of set the stage for, kind of, a bit of a, I guess, sort of a, I don't know, not backtracking, or just sort of a review, I guess, more or less, of how we got here and what the warning signs have been all along. And so we're going to do that. So I want to start off here with a program that the Idaho Freedom Foundation, Anna Miller, she's no longer with the Freedom Foundation, but she was at the forefront a number of years ago, exposing what was going on in our education system, the curriculum that dealt with gender identity and affirming transgender, all this, the transgender stuff. And so what Idaho Freedom Foundation did, and what Anna Miller did, I think they called it the Center for Education Studies or something like that, but they published an entire expose on your school districts, and you can look into your school districts on I don't know how up to date it is right now, but you can look into your school districts and find out all of the different curriculum and what, the stats on the school district here. And so right now here's what you have here. This is Boise School District number 1. And it gives you a map of where what part of the school district it covers. So is that zoomable? Is that map zoomable? Can you zoom in there? There you go. Yeah. So that's, if you're in this area, where the school district is, but it covers, covers the north end, most of the downtown Boise, and it sprawls down into South Boise there. But that is the Boise School District. And over on the right is a bunch of information about the school district, enrollment and budgets and that sort of thing. But then there's also some links about resources. And if you go down to the bottom here, we discovered something, because we were researching something. We discovered this, and it says that this school district uses a gender support plan. And that caught our attention because the gender support plan is something that was referenced in an email that this parent received where there was an incident at the school between a boy and a girl. And let's not show this email yet. And she had she had referenced, the boy that happened in this incident. And we had a administrator from the school confirm that this boy was in a gender support plan. And I have never heard that. I don't know what that means, what a gender support plan means. And so we started looking into it and tried to find what is a gender support plan. And foolish me, I went directly to the district's website and was trying to search for it. And of course it's not going to be there, right? Because they don't just put this stuff on the front page. But our crack research producers and stuff did find a gender support plan for the Boise School District. So we have that here. And this is fascinating because what it basically is when a student is put on a gender support plan, you go through this checklist here. And one of the top things that's up here is whether or not the parent is involved. Go to the top. Whether the parent knows, is aware of, or is not aware of the students, of this student dealing with their gender identity. So right off the bat, they check mark whether or not the parent is involved or not involved. And we're assuming if they're not involved, they just check it and then they continue to go through the rest of the stuff, and and this child has continued to stay under a gender support plan. Now, where do these gender support plans come from? Well, there was an article that was published by Anna Miller, and she points out that in this article that these gender support plans were inspired or a model created by, and it may have been directly given to the Boise School District here, but it's created by a organization called Gender Spectrum. And Gender Spectrum is an organization that was created in the early 2000s. They're based out of Berkeley, California. What a shock, right? Let's go to their website. If you go to thegenderspectrum.org, they have an entire plan that talks about how to make your school a gender inclusive school. This is real, folks. You can go there right now, genderspectrum.org. And there's all sorts of different tabs and different materials on here. There's a 25, 30-minute presentation teaching school district leaders or principals or whoever how to make your school a gender inclusive school. And they have their version of a gender support plan. And yeah, this is what they put out. And this is sort of like you could just take this, but if you read the top paragraph up there, it talks about how this is the form that you would use in your school. And again, right there, are the parents aware of this or are they not? And then you just continue filling this out. Folks, the reason we're calling this out is because this stuff was published in 2023 by Anna Miller, and everybody was freaking out. Everybody was oh my God, you're screaming, you're what is the term when you're crying chicken, right? You're I don't know. This time change really has me messed up. But you're screaming that the sky is falling, right? and everybody's freaking out. Well, I don't know what to tell you, folks, because now let's show the email. This is an email thread here that we received, and this is what's happening inside the Boise school district. And let's show the close-up version here. So down here and you can see this was email. This email starts at the bottom, right? Because it's one of those email threads. It's we redacted all of the names here, but this is someone's mom. And she said that there was an issue in the girls' bathroom today because her daughter walked in on a boy masturbating in a stall. And she came home from having anxiety from that. And the mother here goes along to say that, can you email me a copy of the school's restroom policy? And can I also get a copy of the incident report for today? Her father and I are not comfortable knowing that this boy is allowed in the girls' restroom. Well, the administrator here writes back, thank you for reaching out with your concerns. So-and-so made me aware of your conversation today. Under district policy, and here is the key, folks, under district policy, students who are on a gender support plan are able to use the bathroom that aligns with the gender they identify as. Students who are on a gender support plan are able to use the bathroom that aligns with the gender identity that they have. And then it goes on to reference Idaho legislation. Let me steer off real quick. Let's put a pause on this and tell you about remind you again about this piece of legislation that was passed in 2023. It was passed, and then it immediately was it 23 or 24? I'm pretty sure it was 23, but it was immediately passed, and then it went into a legal challenge where the legislation basically said that sorry for jumping ahead there, but the legislation says that boys have to use boys and girls have to use girls' locker rooms and restrooms and all that stuff. Even if they identify, it doesn't matter what they identify as, whatever their biological sex is, that is the restroom that they are assigned to. If any student feels uncomfortable going into a multi-use bathroom with many people that can use it, they should be allowed to go use a private bathroom somewhere else in the school, the nurse's bathroom or another single stall only bathroom, right? But the law said that girls and girls and boys, regardless of whatever they think they identify as. So that was challenged in the court. The Idaho Supreme Court said, we're putting a hold on this law. And then they said they issued their findings. It was immediately appealed, and now the case is sitting in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. While it's there, it has been instructed that the school districts shall continue with the policies that they have made on their own. Right? So they can make a policy that is boys and girls only. Or if they have a policy that is different, they can continue to do it. Right? But it'll be left up to the school districts. So right now, the school district in Boise, apparently, according to this, is that if any of these students are under a gender support plan, that they can use the restroom. So that's where we are right now. We're still waiting for the Ninth Circuit to weigh in on this. And, it's the most overturned circuit in the history of the universe. And so we imagine this is going to go up to the Supreme Court eventually, and we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, the school district is acting as if they have to do this. They have to allow. And that's not the case. The school districts can say girls and boys. So it's up to you folks down there to call up the school district and say, this is unacceptable. This is absolutely unacceptable. It is within your power to make the rule that we can separate this. And why is that? Because girls should not be having to go into the girls' restroom and find boys masturbating in them. Come on, folks. Are you serious? I about fell out of my chair when I read that email. And I've been trying to remain calm on this, but I am telling you, this is a huge problem. You have a mentally ill boy, so mentally ill that they think that they're some other gender. I don't know what this person assumes they are, but they're something other than a boy. And they are going into the girls' restroom and into a stall during school hours, knowing full well that other girls are going in there. This boy needs help, and what he's getting is enabling. This is disgusting, folks. It is absolutely disgusting. Go back to genderspectrum.org. The materials on genderspectrum.org are, I mean, you can go to the resources and you can just click through and just, I mean, go to town, Mr. Producer. Go to town. Just click anywhere and just let's just look at this stuff. Yeah, training materials. This is all about yeah, there's some slides, right? I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible what's here. All about making your school a gender affirming school. And again, that is such an Orwellian term, because we're not affirming the child's actual gender. We are affirming their delusion. We are affirming their mental illness. Okay? So we are not okay here. We are not okay here. Yeah. I don't know, folks. I'm not trying to. Great. Specifically, look at that. Gender in bathrooms. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Folks, I don't understand. I don't understand. We're in a spiritual battle. I mean, this stuff is evil. This stuff is absolutely evil. And I feel so terrible, because I don't believe that many people who are affirming this are evil people. I believe they are brainwashed. I believe they are duped. I think a lot of them mean well, and they just have their entire worldview has been corrupted by a few really bad, evil actors out there. And Hollywood is one of them. And it's the mainstream media, the tech companies, and the social media and all that stuff. And they have a real responsibility. They have a culpability. They all have culpability in this. And that brings us to what the hearing that was this morning, which was another trying to protect our children, an idea to try to protect our children. But what we have to do, folks, is we have to do things that are wise and well directed. Okay, we're going to get into that. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll get into that. All right. So I guess we'll do that. All right, folks. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
And that's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape, because we now got video.
The dictionary defines a pledge as something that you give as a sign that you'll keep a promise. As Idahoans, that's what we're looking for in our elected leaders. A sign that they'll keep their word. Talk is cheap, and so are political promises, hidden agendas, and special interests. This is why we created the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge, affirming the values Idahoans have been living by for over 100 years, inspired by the only two documents everyone has agreed to live by. So when an Idaho legislator signs our pledge, inviting voters to publicly hold them accountable, that's what we call political integrity. The pledge restores trust and honesty between voters and their legislators. It means protecting our shared values and ensuring your voice is heard in Boise. And that is priceless. Thank your legislator for having the political courage to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge. And if they haven't, it's time to ask why.
Folks, we take this stuff seriously here, and that pledge is particularly important, because part of that pledge, the statement on that pledge, is says that I will not vote against wise and well-directed bills that protect the life and innocence of all children. And this issue that we just covered in the first half of the show is particularly frustrating. And because we do pass bills, and then you have this nonsense that still continues, and I don't understand why people push back on it. They are pushing back on normal civilization. Things that have been normal for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, boys and girls, men and women. And as a man, it is our duty, and this may offend some of you, but it is our duty to protect women. To protect our girls. That is our duty. It's just within me. I can't stop but not want to protect my wife and my daughter. To teach my boys that they will do the same. And so that's why we look for legislators who will follow that pledge, who will sign that pledge and say, I'll do that. I'll get behind all that stuff. And when we talked about protecting the innocence of children, we need to do it wise and well-directed. And I think this morning is a perfect example of what I think was a well-intended bill, but I do not think it was wise, and it certainly wasn't well-directed. So let's get into some of this. It was Senate Bill 1158. This is a bill that has come through the Senate, I think the last 2 years, maybe 3, and it hasn't gotten through. But let's set you up here. This bill, you can read it there, is a mobile device, the native browser filter activation for minors. So basically what this bill is seeking to do is to compel companies like Apple and Samsung and Google that if they're selling their phones and a parent comes in to buy a phone or a device for their child, that they are required to give it to the parent with the filters, the parental control filters turned on so that you can give it to the child. The issue with this is that the filter only works on the native browser on the phone. It doesn't cover any of the other apps that are on there or any other apps that you can download. It's simply for the native browser, the internet search browser that's on there. And so that's what it does. But let's listen to Senator Cook, who was the sponsor of this bill in the Senate. Let's listen to him close out the argument here after the hearing today. We like to do the closing arguments because sometimes that's where they kind of piece it all together in a quicker way rather than listening to their 16-minute opening speech. So let's listen to that.
Senator Kevin Cook, Legislative District 32. So as you heard here, we had a lot of money outside of Idaho talking. Let me just point out one of them that I thought was very interesting. One of them mentioned that he was against my bill or against 1158. He said we should support the age verification bill, which I 110% support because we need something at every technology stack, every level. But the thing that you might not know is that very company is the company that is challenging the Texas law, the Texas age verification bill in the courts right now. And yet he stood up and said, you need to be using this one and not the filter. So, the hypocrisy that is involved with our children is astounding to me. We heard about the Constitution. This is based off of the Constitution. The Supreme Court said filters. It's the closest thing to the individual person. They recommend doing filters. Some of them mentioned about that it was unconstitutional because it was blocking adults. That is false. It does not block the adults. They still get their free-flowing morning cup of pornography if that's what they want. If you, like me, got probably 300 emails over last night talking about if you pass this, you are putting our guns in jeopardy. On January 26, 2025, we had a young lady by the age of 26 take her Mercedes-Benz into the Eagles fans who were celebrating. They just won the Washington Commanders and gave them a right to go to play in the Super Bowl. She plowed in into.
Okay, let's come out of this.
With their Mercedes.
let's come out of this and go on for forever here on this topic. One of the arguments was like, if we start suing the manufacturer of the device, right? Like if you're upset that if you find out that your child is watching pornography and you want to sue Apple for that, or do you want to sue the distributor of that pornography? See, we had a bill last year that finally got passed that allows parents a cause of action, so that if a pornography site does not properly verify the end user of their product in the state of Idaho through age verification, right? And a child makes its way onto their site and the parent finds out about it, you can sue the pornography distributor, right? Because they're the ones that should have checked whether or not what they were delivering was age appropriate, right? So like if you walk into a business, right? If you walk into a store to buy a dirty magazine, the person, and you're a child, the person's going to not give it to you, or they're going to card you and make sure you're over the age so you can buy that dirty magazine. And if they do it, who do you sue? You sue the business if they did that, right? They're the ones that are being held liable. That's it's actually a criminal charge, right? Do you sue the owner of the building if they're leasing the building, or the owner of the land? Right? Do you sue the manufacturer of the newsstand, the news rack? Who made that news rack that pornography was sitting upon? Right? I mean, it sounds like I don't think I'm too far off on the analogy here, right? So that bill passed, and so we have that in Idaho. And so now he wants, should there be yeah, you should put filters on here. But there's other arguments. Let's listen to Senator they're better than what I'm making here. Let's watch Senator Brandon Shippey's argument.
I will be opposing the motion. I want to say I appreciate the comments from Senator Anthon. I agree that the right to view or distribute pornography is not a constitutionally protected right. I think that is a bad opinion if that's the opinion that's being held by anybody. My issue is that this does infringe upon the activities of business with a net zero outcome. I agree with many of what the testifiers have stated today, and I appreciate a lot of the testimony that we heard this morning. Pornography is a poison in our nation and in our state. It is destructive to marriages, to families, and I think something needs to be done. Something needs to be done. It is destroying our communities. I just don't believe this is the solution. As a father of 3 children I experience often don't tell the truth. And so for them to be trusted to tell the truth about their age on this, they easily would get around this. It only applies to the native browser. I don't think this is even a small step toward fixing the problem. I think this is, we're in a torrential downpour, and this is using a credit card to shield yourself from the rain, and it's just not going to accomplish anything. So I will be a no on the motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, folks. I'm sorry, because after just going through what we did earlier in the program, talking about protecting our children, we want actual solutions. We want actual solutions. The idea of using a credit card to protect yourself from the rain, it's an interesting analogy. I never heard that one before. I like it. I'm going to use it going forward. But Senator, there was some testimony. There was some testimony from the people who showed up in support. Here's somebody who had an interesting point in opposing the bill as well. Let's listen to that.
Great. John Decker, I'm a senior fellow at the Parkview Institute. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony against Senate Bill 1158, the Children's Device Protection Act. While the intent of this bill to protect minors from harmful content is laudable, The proposed legislation ensures pragmatically that it would do the exact opposite. It also poses an inescapable constitutional concern due to its unintended restrictions on free speech. The private marketplace for content filtering is robust, with numerous companies dedicated to developing content filtering software and parental tools. They compete, innovate, and continuously improve their products to better address evolving challenges in online safety. SB 1158, therefore, is short-sighted in its approach, which would serve as a disincentive to this private marketplace, and it also creates new barriers to entry or expansion for those who are already most specialized in providing these sort of services, as it shifts significant market power over to hardware manufacturers. This backwards approach to child safety risks reducing investment that will protect children and instead enforces an unrealistic demand that hardware manufacturers be a jack of all trades in an entirely different market. Furthermore, the bill's definitions are overly broad and ambiguous, rendering them too vague to be enforceable or complied with, even with the best of intentions. Any attempt to fully restrict internet content that can, in the loosest terms, be considered obscene would result in internet access akin to that of North Korea if it could be done at all. Considering the level of content restriction that could, under these vague definitions, be required, the only honest conclusion one can draw is that this bill would lead to the blocking of innumerable pieces of media that are entirely legal, thereby depriving individuals of their First Amendment rights. The losers of this bill would be every Idaho resident who would have to forfeit more of their right to free speech, and the only winners would be trial lawyers who would have some ambitious excuse to harass American device manufacturers anytime they locate content deemed too obscene. And I would also that the other winner of this bill would be pornography websites, including those non-compliant with your age verification law. They could wind up benefiting as well, as they would now have a legal framework to shift blame and legal liability onto someone else.
If you could wrap up.
Thank you for your time.
That's it there. I mean, this just creates this is just a boon for lawyers, you know? I mean, and the reason why, and this is going to be my argument. I mean, all those different points there aside, this is my argument. It gives you a false sense of security. It gives you a false sense of security. If you are going to go buy your phone for your child, and they say, "Hey, we have to put the parental filter on it so that there's no inappropriate stuff for the child." You're like, "Great, yeah, throw it on there. I'm giving it to my kid," and then you walk away thinking that the phone is protected. They passed a law in Idaho: all phones that are given to kids will protect them from pornography. That is simply not true. That's like putting a mask on your face to protect yourself from an airborne virus. You think you're doing something, but it does nothing, because there's all sorts of different ways for those viruses to get in you, right? There's all sorts of different ways for a phone that only has a filter on the internet browser. There's all sorts of apps. There's all sorts of ways to get onto the internet in the phone. And that, giving parents a false sense of security, is a huge, huge problem. And I use COVID as an example. You can use COVID as an example. People had a false sense of security. Older people thought all they had to do was put on a mask and they can go about their day out in the wild. And then they caught COVID, and then they ended up dead because they thought the mask would save them when they should have just stayed home. Or if they were sick and they're like, "Well, I'm wearing a mask so I can go outside." No, you stay home when you're sick so you don't spread the disease. You don't just put on a mask and go outside and go to work. You stay home so you don't spread the disease. How many times have you been ready to go out to a party and you come down with something, you're like, "Oh, I shouldn't go. I'll get everybody sick." It's the same thing here. You don't just give them something with one little filter on one little app on the phone. Senator Ben Taves is a warrior in this field of protecting children. And he had an emotional testimony or emotional comment that he gave during the hearing today. Let's watch it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is probably one of the issues that is the most important to me. I've seen the devastation that pornography brings, and I have 5 children. This summer I'll have 3 teenagers. So this is a very real issue to me. I'm a big advocate for solutions, But, and I've said this before, I believe that real problems deserve real solutions. And I don't believe that this is a real solution. And it's unfortunate because I respect the sponsor. I respect the pro tem and his comments. But what I'm afraid of and what I think is the reality is that this is more of a paper tiger. If parents believe for a second that this legislation protects their children when they hand them a phone, we are doing the parents of Idaho a great disservice. Parents, don't give your kids phones. Just don't give them the phone. The reality is that to the degree that they believe that this will keep pornography away from their kids, I think it'll do more harm than it does good. I don't care about the whole constitutional talking about that. I don't think that that's a huge issue here. I think that the bigger problem is that if we want to keep this stuff out of the reach of our children, we need federal solutions. We need it to be more than state solutions. I don't know the next steps to do that, but I heard you. I heard all of your testimony. It's a really important subject. I really want a real solution. I will do anything I can to get to the best solution possible. Thank you.
It's hard to argue with that, folks. It's hard to argue with that. And he's right. You don't give him the phone. You don't, for all sorts of various reasons, not just pornography, but just, social skills, right? I don't know how many parents I know that have their kids in public schools or teachers that I know or volunteers and stuff that say, during lunch hour or recess, the kids that do have phones and that are allowed to bring them to school and stuff, like everybody goes out there and they're all just sitting down looking at their phone. They're not running around. They're not playing. They're not interacting with each other. And the ones that are off in a corner with the phone, who knows what they're looking at? You don't give them the phone. There is a phone out there and this isn't a pitch for them. They're not a sponsor or anything, but there is a phone out there that I've heard of called the Pinwheel phone. And it's a device that has been created specifically for children, so that parents can get in touch with them for emergency situations, and also some light entertainment and communication. But I think that's great. I think that's where the market is. We have to leave this type of solution up to the market when it comes to the actual device. The content itself, that is the responsibility of the content makers. You should not be letting your stuff get into the hands of children. And if parents find out that their children have this stuff, then they should have a cause of action against the content creators or the distributors. And that's the law that we have now in Idaho. So, this bill gives people a false sense of security, and it also opens up the door for legal challenges later on when people want to sue gun manufacturers when a loved one is murdered by a gun. They say, well, who made that gun? Oh, Smith & Wesson made that gun? Okay, we're going to go sue Smith & Wesson because that maniac used a gun to kill my loved one. Come on. That's not what we're doing here. We cannot be going down that road. All right, folks. Do we have Brian Allman here? Let's take a short, quick break. And no, there is Brian. Yeah, Brian, let's get you in here, my friend. Let's get your take on what we've just been talking about here, and then we'll try and wrap up with some of the things that were happening here at the top of the show with HCR 10. But go ahead and give me your reaction on this whole device issue.
You basically said everything I could have said.
All right, let's move on. No, just kidding.
I'm hearing an echo here. Hold on. So I actually testified against a previous version of Senator Cook's bill when I worked with Idaho Freedom Foundation, and they took had some issues with it. And I thought Wayne Hoffman at the time had a good point that this is kind of like outsourcing your raising your children to the government, to say, like you're saying, it gives a false sense of security. Oh, the government took care of it. We passed a law. My children are okay. I can just hand them a phone and they'll be okay. And that takes away the necessity of actually monitoring what your children are doing, either choosing not to give them a phone in the first place, or if you do, to be very careful about what they actually see on it and how much time they spend on it. And so, yeah, I appreciate Senator Cook for trying to solve a problem. There is a problem. He comes from kind of a technical background. He sees a problem, wants to solve it. I just don't think this will actually solve the problem. So.
Yeah, I don't think either. So, yeah, I mean, I feel, you feel bad. You feel bad when someone does have a good intentions and they think they have a good idea, but that bill, folks, we didn't mention it until right now, but the bill did fail in committee. There was a motion to send it to the floor, and that failed 4-5, and so that bill won't be heard this year. But who knows? He might come back next year with a different plan. The only thing that I can think of that would quote improve his bill would to add way more restrictions, way more impossible restrictions on on the makers of the phones. I mean, it's just when you say it doesn't go far enough, the only solution is to make it go farther, which means it's going to be harder for the companies to do something. So hard, in fact, that they should probably just create a whole new device, in which case there is already those devices on the market. So, I mean, anyway, we could beat this over and over again, but we won't. And then real quick, Brian, at the top of the show, we talked about what was going on in the Boise School District. I mean, I don't know if you did say you worked at the Idaho Freedom Foundation for a while. We both know Anna Miller, and she did some great work exposing a lot of the things that were going on in the Idaho school districts. We now hit the point where we're one level behind what could have been a sexual assault inside a school bathroom because of something called a gender support plan. There's a big problem going on here, and I don't think people are taking it seriously enough.
No, it's, you've got a left wing here that is actively pushing this radical gender ideology, trying to talk to children about sexual matters, which just a few years ago, anybody who tried to do that would have been, run out of town on a rail, if not, thrown in jail. And now it's celebrated. At some point, the inmates gained control of the asylum here. Yeah. And then you have a lot of people on the right who are well-meaning, but they don't want to deal with it because, public schools know that, I remember public schools and, things were fine. And I like my child's teacher, so I don't want to criticize anything. And so they're just whistling past the graveyard, just not wanting to talk about it. But yeah, these things are still going on, and passing laws doesn't seem to do anything. The system needs to be, real cleaned from the inside out, some word that means that.
Yeah. Very good. All right, Brian. Well, we've got Senator Josh Kaiser on deck, so I want to bring him in here, but let everybody know what you're working on and where we can follow you.
Well, I'm going to try and catch up with some of the bills that have been going through the system, and also things that are not going through the system, like the restrictions on teachers unions taking public funds. That seems to be stuck in the Senate. So I'm going to highlight that over at gemstatechronicle.com. And of course, always on Twitter at gemstatebrian.
Fantastic. Oh, and HCR, what was the vote on the Convention of the States bill?
It was on the other
we have
here.
It on screen there.
Oh yeah, there we go. 44-26 or 26-44. You always put the I side first. So yeah, the Idahoans decided not to go forward with the idea of an Article 5 convention. I appreciate a lot of the people who are on the proponent side of this. A lot of great conservatives. But this is what we've decided to do. Let's hold off. I do appreciate what Representative Heather Scott said. We've got a new administration. Let's see what they can do at the federal level before maybe taking the steps, radical steps like this.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, I'm sure we haven't heard the last of this, so we'll keep tabs on it. All right, Brian. Good to see you. We'll see you next time.
See you tomorrow.
All right. All right, folks. Well, yeah, Senator. It looks like Senator Josh Kaiser has been able to join us today. They adjourned on time today for us, and I appreciate that, Senator. It's good to see you. I want to spend a little bit of time with you. You are a freshman senator. You're one of the few freshman senators out there this year, and we wanted to kind of get your take on how it's been, but also on any bills that you've been pushing through. I know Medicaid and Medicaid expansion is something that, and basically just the overall welfare state in general was something that you're interested in reforming as well. But I wanted to get your take a little bit on the topics that we've been watching on this program today, that we've been covering on this program today, namely, protecting children from pornography, from inappropriate material. I mean, there's a lot of those bills that have been coming through the last couple of years. Where do you think we stand on this, where we can get more people to get behind some of these bills and stop the bad ones from getting through as well?
Yeah, well, that was a lot, Matt. Good to see you again. Good to be on here with you. Things move really slowly for a while here, and then everything picks up all of a sudden. It gets really busy, and it's hard to find some free time. So great to connect. But I do want to highlight some of the things you mentioned previously, like Medicaid. There's been some disappointments, like Bill 138. We would have liked to have seen that get through. I know that a lot of people were working on legislation to get it right. But I thought there was a lot of good in that bill. That's why I was a co-sponsor, and it's unfortunate that didn't get through. So hopefully this other one we passed, I think it was 345, maybe you know better. And there's a lot of good in that also. So hopefully that'll be a first step that we could build upon. But there's been some other great things. I know you were down here for the anti-mask bill that just got signed. So that was really a good victory. I think we also did a pretty significant tax cut this year. So there's been some good. I'm hoping to see the chicken bill get through. I wouldn't have thought it would be so controversial, but I think it's appropriate. I know our President Trump had tweeted about the need for families to be able to raise chickens at home. So hopefully we see that cross the finish line. Perhaps not, but another good one I think is the Medical Freedom Act that Senator Dan Foreman brought through on the Senate side. So waiting to see what will happen with that. But I'm not familiar if we have any current legislation maybe you've seen regarding pornography or access to pornography with children. Is there something that you've seen come across the other side of the rotunda?
Yeah, we covered a bill this morning. It actually died in committee, and it was a bill that we've seen a few times before. Senator Cook presented a bill that would make the manufacturers of smartphones and tablets install a filter that could be enabled at the point of sale so that parents can give their child a phone. And the argument was that that won't do enough. If you want to protect children from pornography, you can't just put one filter on one app and think that that's okay. So that's the position that we took over here, that while the intention was good, it would probably do more harm than good by giving parents a false sense of security. But you won't have to worry about that because the bill got killed in committee. So that won't you won't need to take up your day on that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, oftentimes you see, we used to always say the Marine Corps, good initiative, bad judgment. I think that it's appropriate that sometimes legislation gets through really slowly so that we can get it right. I think there's a tremendous responsibility when making laws, and it's tough to delve into that area of holding the manufacturer liable for something that the parents can do at home.
Yeah. But let me. We only got you for a few more minutes, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. You ran your election. You ran against Senator Chuck Winder, who was the pro tem of the Senate. And that's the leader of the Senate for those who don't know all the Latin language out there. But because you defeated him, that obviously upended the leadership in the Senate. And now we have the pro tem Senator Kelly Anthon, and we've seen, like for instance, we've seen a lot more bills come through the Senate that normally were blocked by Winder and maybe folks that were close to him in leadership. So A, thank you for running. But B, once you got there, what was the attitude like from the folks that worked alongside Winder? I mean, you were the guy that took him out. I mean, you didn't replace his position, obviously, but
sure,
you certainly caused the Senate to restructure itself.
Right. It was a very significant race, never happened in Idaho history. And I think that it created a lot of opportunity for others to step up into a leadership role. Obviously, we had to select new leadership. And I think that Senator Anthony and others on the leadership team have done a terrific job. As you mentioned, a lot more bills are being heard. I think there's one of the terms I've used for months now is that there's been a lot more unit cohesion. I think that everyone is excited with something fresh, right? When you have turnover, it allows an opportunity to tackle some complex problems that we've had here for a long time, but with creative solutions for that. So I think that we've got a good team right now. We always have some hiccups, and there's always something to complain about, obviously, but I think that we've done a lot more good than anything else, and there's still a lot to be excited about. So they've done a terrific job. I'm really excited to be working with them, and there was a sentiment that there was a different version of Senator Winder here in his last year or two that created some tension unnecessarily. And I think that some of that now has been cleared up. And, I wish him well. I've only ever had very amicable interactions with him, and he did a terrific job and did carry quite a legacy among some of the colleagues here. But it's been very good thus far.
Good to hear. Yeah, we want to make sure that you're successful there. As you head into the final weeks here, is there anything that you have under your belt that you're trying to champion through that we could help, that the audience out here could help get behind and give you some support?
I appreciate that. I've been taking primarily a crawl, walk, run approach. It's a new field that I'm getting into, and I try to see how everybody kind of plays at the poker table, if you will. So I'm carrying a few items. I think I have two things left that I'll present on the Senate floor, House Bill 199. That's what was initially moving a rule into statutes that's related to Refugee Medical Care Act. During their analysis of sort of trying to do a DOGE agenda, we identified that there was a little bit of a discriminatory disparity with the refugee medical program that allowed the refugees to qualify at a higher income level on the federal poverty guidelines at 155% or 150%, excuse me, as opposed to 133 like the rest of Idaho. And so in moving that rule to statute, we just changed that small detail. And so that'll be something that'll come across the Senate floor. Again, very minor, but in that program, it was costing $1.1 million just to issue about $200,000 in medical costs. So identifying areas of waste, that would be a program that we wanted to fix. So that's something. And the other thing that'll be coming across, I just introduced at a print hearing on behalf of a constituent, was related to planning and zoning specific to homeless shelters in Boise. In any city, primarily the constituents of Boise resident, but this would be related to populations of 100,000 or more. And so that'll be coming across as well in a hearing pretty soon. But otherwise, things I'm excited about, I already mentioned, like the CHICA bill, like the Medical Freedom Act, and some other things. But
great.
Yeah, we're coming. We're almost done. Hopefully only a couple more weeks here as opposed to, summertime. But
yeah. And then the off season, you regroup and so forth. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, folks, Senator, thanks for joining us. Where can people follow you and keep in touch with your work if they wanted to reach out?
Sure. I have contact information here at the Capitol on the legislative website, but I'm also on X and Facebook. So anyone can follow me there.
All right. Very good. All right, Senator. Well, thanks for taking the time today. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Matt. Keep up the great work. Appreciate you. Cheers.
Yeah. All right, folks. Thanks to Senator for coming on. That's fantastic. One of the real good guys down there. Good head on his shoulders, and I like that. He's watching the poker game. He's seeing how everybody plays. That's good, man. I mean, there's a lot of folks out there. They come in guns a-blazing, and then they find out they have the wrong ammo. And then there's folks that just sit down at the table and relationship build, right? And so we expect to see good things from him the rest of the session, and then of course next year as well. So we like that. Very good. All right, folks. Thank you again for joining us today. It's been fantastic. I hope you get. The topic was hard today, but we have to protect our children. We have to protect our children. We have to make sure that we can do wise and well-directed things, let's be prudent and let's get this stuff done, man. Let's get this stuff done. Let's protect our republic. Protect our precious Idaho and our precious children. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us. A reminder, as always, idahosignal.live. You can listen to the program there. If you've missed any portion of this, you can go and it will be looping. It'll be looping there soon. You might be listening to it live right now. I checked the numbers. There are actually people listening to that live. Like live. Like right now live. So if you're listening, great. All right, folks. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Bill, I think it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.